My 45-year-old son, Marcus, announced he was selling my late husband's armchair to make room for his new, modern entertainment center. He delivered the ultimatum with a sneering smile, fully expecting me, Eleanor, to crumble into tears and desperate pleas, just as I had done countless times before when he had demanded my savings or my patience. He was anticipating the usual performance of the weeping, senile matriarch whose opinion didn't matter. My back remained straight. My voice was perfectly flat. He had no idea that his arrogant contempt for my sentimental junk and my quiet competence had walked him directly into a fatal miscalculation, the trigger for his immediate public downfall. I remembered the exact moment Marcus had moved back in. Almost 3 years ago. The memory was not abstract. It was anchored by the crisp feel of the paper I held in my hand. The residence agreement. He had arrived with 3 suitcases and a mountain of debt, promising he was only staying until he got back on his feet. I had already bailed him out of financial trouble 3 times since his 30th birthday, sacrificing the $11,000 I had diligently saved from my retirement account to keep him afloat and out of jail. That money was my buffer, my safety net, the only guarantee I had for maintaining my dignity should my health fail. I depleted that buffer for him. Just a few months. "Mom," he had promised, his eyes wide and earnest. "The performance of a sincere son. I'll treat this place like a palace. And I'll pay you back double. This is a temporary hardship. And you're the only one I can trust." He cloaked his theft in the vile flattery of false trust. While I was sitting at the kitchen table, writing out checks to the collection agencies to salvage his credit, he was loudly calling his girlfriend, describing my house as a dump, and mocking my meticulous system for saving every receipt as an old lady's mental illness. He used the peace I bought him with my financial security to secretly plot his next move, completely unaware that his mother's mental illness was precisely why I was prepared. He didn't just take my money, he consumed my sacrifice and then mocked the very decency that provided it. He proved his entitlement was a bottomless pit that would never be filled by my kindness. I would never be his victim again. For that, he deserved no mercy. When he insisted on moving into the spare bedroom, I offered him a simple, 4-page residence agreement. I told him it was necessary for my own peace of mind. Humiliating myself by having to ask my 45-year-old son to sign what amounted to a non-payment lease, I risked his anger and resentment, sacrificing my pride just to document my own ownership. He had rolled his eyes, snatching the pen and scribbling his signature across the bottom. "Whatever. Mom. More of your worthless paperwork. You worry too much about dumb rules." He had waved the document away, dismissing the very legal framework that was about to trap him. While I was quietly filing the signed document in my fireproof safe and enduring his mockery of my useless archival hobby, he was already texting his associates, gloating about how easily he had tricked his silly old mother into letting him stay rent-free. He failed to realize that the junk he signed was the first layer of my defense. He confused my politeness with stupidity. That piece of paper was not junk. It was the foundation of his eviction. The documentation of his financial and moral failures, itemized and signed by his own hand. He would learn that an archivist's file cabinet is more deadly than any legal threat. The key to his immediate downfall lay in the one item he despised most: my late husband's armchair. He had found a listing on a local online marketplace showing the antique armchair, listed for sale by M. Williams, for $200. The chair was not merely furniture. It was the last tangible connection I had to my late husband, Arthur. He had died in that chair, reading his favorite copy of Moby Dick. Every thread, every imperfection in the worn leather, held the imprint of his life. Marcus knew this, which only made his act of selling it more sadistic. He had approached me with a smirk. I sold the old, rotting junk piece. "Mom, good riddance. A courier is coming tomorrow at 10 a.m. sharp. I did you a favor. You won't have to trip over that hideous thing anymore." His arrogance knew no bounds. Believing his lie of throwing it away would be enough to end the discussion. While he was privately high-fiving himself, arranging the logistics of the sale and pocketing the advance payment, I was silently running my fingers over the faded leather, recalling Arthur's warmth and the memory of my life with him. The pain of the betrayal was specific, not general. He was selling my marriage for $200, and he thought I was too broken to fight back. He wanted to destroy my legacy and my memories, but he had chosen the wrong piece of furniture. He had chosen the piece that was explicitly protected. His cruelty was now his chain. My voice was steady as I addressed him. That's a shame. Marcus. I quite liked that chair. I walked to my desk. Not my safe. I opened the residence agreement folder and pulled out the document, my fingers tracing the specific clause. He crossed his arms, preening in his false victory. Too late now. The courier is scheduled, and the buyer has paid the deposit. It's done. You always wait too long. Mom. He expected me to cry, to beg the buyer for forgiveness, or to demand that he personally stop the courier. He fully expected me to be publicly humiliated when the courier arrived, forcing me to either lose the chair or suffer an awkward confrontation. I did neither. I opened my personal laptop and brought up the courier company's confirmation page. I didn't cancel the order. I simply copied and pasted 2 sentences from his signed residence agreement into the special instructions section of the courier's online form, per the attached signed agreement. The listed seller, M. Williams, is unauthorized to sell or move this item. Any attempt to proceed will result in the immediate filing of a breach of contract lawsuit against the seller for fraud and the imposition of a $100 daily penalty for unauthorized property disposal. I hit send, attaching a scanned copy of his signature page. The electronic notification was instant. Marcus's phone buzzed violently on the kitchen counter. It was a panicked call from the courier company's legal department. Mr. Williams, we've received an alarming notification regarding property fraud. We cannot proceed with the pickup. You have violated Clause 3B of your residence agreement. You need to contact your mother immediately. The shock on Marcus's face was total. His signature, the one he had so carelessly scribbled, had been used as a legal weapon to not only stop the sale but to publicly brand him a fraudster. The chair, the useless junk he tried to sell, was still there. Now, a literal monument to his failed scheme. Marcus slammed his phone onto the countertop, his face turning a dangerous shade of crimson. His humiliation was absolute, and it was entirely public, witnessed only by me, the one person he believed he had beaten. For years, I had quietly swallowed his constant stream of insults, letting him believe he was the smarter one, the dominant one, the one in control, all for the sake of a quiet life. I can't believe you're stupid. Senile paperwork just cost me $200. This is ridiculous. Mom, why do you keep all this useless junk? He spat, attacking the very preparation that defeated him. While he was exploding in rage, attacking my meticulous nature as a flaw, I was sitting calmly in the living room, simply watching him. I had endured 3 years of calculated cruelty to gather that one signature, which had now instantly exposed his entitlement and saved Arthur's chair. He confused my peace with his victory. His rage proved that the wound was deep and personal. He was not finished, and neither was I. He had failed in his attack on my property, and had shown his weakness. He was predictable, and his entitlement was easy to weaponize. Now, his escalation would be a direct assault on my mental state. He would learn that my quiet competence extended far beyond simple paper contracts. The shock of the failed armchair sale and the immediate exposure of his fraud had splintered Marcus's composure. He realized my methodical nature was not a flaw. It was a weapon. His anger was no longer directed at the chair. It was directed at my mind. If he could not outlogic me, he would prove that my logic was the product of a failing, senile mind. The very device that I used for my peace was the one he sought to use for my destruction. I had purchased the smart speaker, an innocuous, gray, fabric-covered cylinder 6 months ago, ostensibly to play classical music and manage my shopping lists. It was a small concession to modernity, a necessary tool I used to keep my mental acuity sharp. Enduring his condescending lessons on how to operate it, I had spent countless nights researching its capabilities, taking time away from the rest I desperately needed, just to stay relevant in his eyes. "It's a toy. Mom." He had dismissed the speaker, sneering at my efforts. "It's for lonely old people who need to talk to a robot. It's a waste of money. Just like all your useless projects." He had consistently reduced my genuine effort to remain independent into a sign of my decline. While I was secretly setting up the speaker's voice recording feature in my private cloud archive, using my archivist's focus to learn its intricate back-end systems, he was in the living room, bragging to his friends on the phone about how easily he could manipulate his tech-illiterate mother to get what he wanted. He never suspected that the very toy he mocked was about to become the most incriminating witness in my house. He sought to invalidate my mind. The one thing my father had told me was my greatest asset. My strength was not my kindness, it was my intellect. I would use the very object he dismissed as useless junk to prove that he was the one incapable of recognizing the true danger in the room. Marcus, in his narcissistic rage, shifted his strategy from theft to legal fraud. He decided to leverage my apparent emotional vulnerability, my distress over the armchair, to attack my legal competency. I found the printout of the conservatorship application form tucked into his trash, listing his name as the sole potential conservator of my estate. The mere existence of that form was an attack on my dignity. It branded me, Eleanor, as mentally deficient, incapable of handling my own finances or managing my own life, the ultimate betrayal after decades of perfect independence. He was overheard whispering to his lawyer on the phone. "I just need a doctor to sign off that she's unstable. She's completely lost and crying over a chair. It's classic senility. I'll take care of her. Of course, she just needs supervision." The false concern in his voice was a layer of nauseating sugar over the poison of his intent. While he was secretly working the phones, trying to find a doctor willing to rubber stamp the conservatorship application, I was using my retired nurse's knowledge to meticulously review my health records, preparing documents to prove my cognitive function was superior to his own. The irony was total. He was trying to prove I was unfit to manage my affairs while I was managing his entire legal undoing with icy precision. He believed my love for my husband was a weakness. He believed my grief was a sign of madness. He would learn that my love was the foundation of my strength, and my composure was the ultimate sign of my lethal intelligence. His conservatorship plan would not protect him. It would merely indict him. The inevitable confrontation came swiftly, and it was entirely on Marcus's terms. He called his lawyer at the precise moment he thought was safest, when I was busy and distracted. I was in the kitchen, meticulously cleaning the stainless steel countertop, right next to the smart speaker. I was an actress, playing the part of the frail, easily distracted old woman. He walked into the kitchen, his phone already on speakerphone, addressing his lawyer. "Yes, Mr. Henderson. She's here now. As you can hear, she's fussing in the kitchen. She's completely lost, crying over a chair. She's mentally incompetent. We need to move fast before she realizes what's happening." He was using my current presence as live evidence of my mental decline, an arrogant display of confidence. Marcus knew I was hard of hearing on my left side, and he spoke softly on his right. He was convinced I would hear nothing but a distant murmur, confirming his belief that I was too senile to understand the gravity of his conversation. The lawyer, a man whose word was supposed to be final, was listening, and the conservatorship seemed imminent. I did not react to his conversation. My back remained to him, my cleaning routine unbroken. But as he repeated the phrase "mentally incompetent," I slowly turned, my gaze locked on the smart speaker. My lips moved only slightly, my voice calm. "Almost a sigh, Alexa. Set a timer for 15 minutes for the roast." Marcus, irritated by the interruption, simply glared at me, then continued his conspiracy, unaware that the wake word had just triggered the device. The entire subsequent conversation, the fraudulent plan, the names of the co-conspirators, the confession of malicious intent was now being recorded and saved to my private cloud archive. Before Marcus could even hang up with his lawyer, my phone, which was in my pocket, buzzed with an automated alert: "New audio recording added to cloud archive." I walked out of the kitchen without a word, taking the simple 30-second audio file and forwarding it to my own attorney, with a copy to the State Bar Association. The State Bar immediately contacted Marcus's lawyer, informing him that the conversation detailing the fraudulent conservatorship attempt had been submitted as evidence of an ethics violation and conspiracy to defraud. Marcus's phone rang again this time. It was his furious lawyer, who realized he had been caught red-handed by a senile old woman's toy. Marcus, now pale and shaking, came storming back into the living room, screaming, "You recorded me. You devious, you knew." For years, I had held my tongue, pretending not to hear his insults or notice his small thefts, all to maintain the facade of a harmonious family. This silence was the price of his eventual destruction. "That speaker is a violation of privacy. I'm calling the police," he roared, projecting his criminal act onto me, the perfect, pathetic attempt at deflection. While he was scrambling to find a justification for his criminal conspiracy, I was calmly deleting my shopping list from the app, confirming the audio file was secure. I had endured the personal violation of my dignity for 3 years, letting him believe I was a victim. Also, I could gather the unimpeachable proof of his malicious intent. My composure was the ultimate insult to his intelligence. He thought technology was for the young. He thought my kindness was confusion. He had attacked my mind and my future, and I had used his arrogance as the trigger for his legal ruin. His rage was now a desperate, wild animal. He would realize that his paper logic failed, and his tech logic failed. His next attack would be a pure, unfiltered financial crime, and for that, I had another silent witness waiting. Marcus's narcissistic rage intensified after the smart speaker debacle. He had tried legal force and technology, and both had been turned against him. He now escalated to a low-tech, malicious crime that targeted my financial independence and my physical, day-to-day, autonomy. He decided to attack me where I was supposedly most vulnerable: my routine. My preparation for this exact scenario was not based on technology, but on trust, a concept Marcus fundamentally failed to grasp. 10 years ago, my best friend, Susan, had become the head teller at my local bank branch. I had spent over 30 years meticulously building a perfect credit score and a flawless financial reputation, an archive of personal integrity that Marcus constantly sought to undermine. That reputation was my last defense against poverty. Marcus had frequently mocked my friendship with Susan as gossiping old ladies and a waste of time, suggesting I should switch to a modern, online bank instead of dealing with small-town hobbies. He never understood that the real value of the small bank was not its interest rate, but the relationships I had cultivated there. While Marcus was loudly complaining to me about how obsolete local bank branches were and how superior his digital-first banking was, I was sitting quietly with Susan over coffee, setting up a verbal safe word protocol. Any suspicious activity, especially a phone call, requesting a change to my PIN or address, would immediately trigger a call to my private, unlisted cell number. He dismissed our friendship as a distraction, when it was, in fact, an ironclad legal defense. He would learn that personal trust, built over decades, is a faster, more lethal weapon than any digital encryption. Marcus chose to attack my lifeline, my credit card, and access to cash. I noticed the new statement for my primary credit card, which contained crucial information about my PIN and card security, was missing from the mailbox. It was a quiet, insidious act of felony mail tampering. Losing access to my card would mean missing payments, destroying my perfect credit score, and, critically, losing my ability to pay for my essential medications and household bills. It would reduce me to begging Marcus for cash, granting him the control he craved. When I casually mentioned the missing mail, Marcus shrugged with feigned concern. "You're probably just being forgetful. Mom, you know how you are with paperwork. I bet you threw it out with the junk mail. Don't worry, I'll look into it later." He was gaslighting me, using his accusation of my forgetfulness to cover his crime, while I was pretending to search through the recycling bin for the lost mail. Marcus was already in the other room, successfully impersonating me on the phone with the bank's automated line. He was reporting the card as lost and requesting a new PIN, trying to lock me out and steal my financial identity. Using my vulnerability as an elderly woman to sound believable, he wanted to destroy my independence by forcing me into financial submission. He wanted me to become dependent on him, turning me into the dependent child and himself into the powerful parent. That would not happen. The moment he tried to steal my identity, he signed his own arrest warrant. The final step of Marcus's financial scheme required a physical visit to the bank, a move he believed was necessary to avoid a digital trail. This walk into the branch was his walk into the trap. My phone rang just as I heard Marcus put on his jacket. It was Susan, my banker friend, calling my private line. Marcus was already heading for the door. I have to run out for a bit. Mom, don't wait up. Just running an errand. He believed he was moments away from picking up the new card and accessing my emergency funds. Marcus was confident. The bank had already approved the PIN change request based on his successful phone impersonation. He expected to walk in, confirm his identity using my stolen personal details, and walk out with a new card and temporary access to cash. He believed the bureaucratic chain of command was too slow to be broken by one old woman. Susan, the head teller, told me Marcus had called requesting a change of address and a PIN change, an extreme red flag that triggered our safe word protocol. Crucially, Susan had politely stalled Marcus's request and alerted the branch manager. He's coming in. Eleanor, Susan whispered into the phone. He requested the new card to be picked up today. We told him it was ready. We've notified security, and the police are on their way to the branch right now. Marcus's arrogance had convinced him the bank was his unwitting accomplice, not a meticulously placed trap. I did not confront him. I simply said, "Thank you. Susan, tell the officer he is wearing a gray jacket and a blue shirt, and the felony is in progress." An hour later, Marcus was arrested inside the bank branch when he attempted to provide my name and sign for the new card, catching him red-handed in the act of felony identity theft. Susan herself was the primary witness. His attempts to use my mail and financial system against me had resulted in handcuffs and a mugshot, instantly destroying his credit and reputation. The police officer, a kind young woman, called me later that afternoon to confirm the arrest. He's been charged with felony identity theft and mail fraud. Ma'am, he'll be released on bail tomorrow, but he's facing serious time. The constant, nagging anxiety of living under the shadow of his debt, his lies, and his entitlement was suddenly lifted. But the price was knowing that my own son was a criminal capable of robbing his mother. His voicemail, left just before his phone was confiscated, was a final, incoherent scream of abuse. "You set me up. You sick. Manipulative B times TH. You used your stupid old friends against me. You will pay for this." While Marcus was sitting in a holding cell, consumed by narcissistic fury, I was on the phone with Susan, the friend he called useless, thanking her for saving my financial security. He failed to realize that the moment he decided to violate the federal law of mail tampering, he activated a criminal protocol I had prepared for 3 years. He tried to destroy my future by stealing my finances. He failed because he underestimated the value of old-fashioned integrity and personal connection. Released on bail, he would be a wounded animal. Stripped of his money and his freedom, he would lash out at the only thing I had left that mattered: my legacy. My next move was ready. A silent monument to his final defeat. Released on bail, Marcus was no longer driven by logic or profit. He was driven by pure, vindictive narcissism. The fact that I, the senile mother he had deemed too foolish to fight, had orchestrated his arrest, was a psychological wound that demanded the destruction of the only thing I held, sacred: my legacy and the memory of my late husband. Arthur. My defenses against his final, personal attack were not in the bank or on a server, but hidden in the very sentimentality he mocked. My most prized possession, a large, heavy photo album documenting my 35-year marriage to Arthur, was the item Marcus sought out. I had spent countless hours assembling that album, meticulously documenting every moment, from the honeymoon to the children's graduations, It was a physical testament to the life Marcus was trying to erase. He was attacking not just paper, but the emotional core of my existence. He cornered me in the hallway, his eyes wild with a combination of rage and fear. "I'm selling everything you own. Mom, I'll put your stupid house up for sale tomorrow. And I'll start with that rotting photo junk. Nobody cares about your useless memories but you." He believed he could break me by attacking the things I loved most. While he was shouting these threats, convinced I would panic and concede my legal rights, I was silently recalling the specific detail I had meticulously hidden inside that very album 3 years prior. He saw the album as junk. I saw it as the final layer of legal armor I had built against his greed. He sought to invalidate my love and my history. He had destroyed his own legacy. Now he wanted to destroy mine. But my love for Arthur had prepared me. He had chosen the very object that held the final, undeniable legal truth that would disinherit him permanently. Marcus's attack escalated from simple threats to public humiliation and illegal seizure of property. Marcus created a flyer and posted it on local community notice boards and social media groups, announcing a public estate sale of all my furniture. Scheduled for that Saturday, the public announcement branded me, Eleanor, as a distressed individual facing financial ruin, forcing me to suffer the deep humiliation of having my private affairs aired across the community. The flyer stated that the sale was being conducted under the legal authority of the sole heir, Marcus Williams, to cover the mounting debts of the estate. He twisted the truth, portraying himself as the responsible party cleaning up my incompetence. While he was preening over the community's horrified reactions to the flyer, enjoying the public narrative of my disgrace, I was quietly emailing my attorney, attaching a picture of the flyer. I was not emotionally reacting to the public shame. I was simply documenting his criminal intent to liquidate my assets based on a fraudulent claim. The cost of that fleeting moment of narcissistic pleasure would be the complete and final severance of his connection to my life and my property. Marcus, growing impatient, decided to physically remove the object of his obsession, the entire contents of my legacy. I knew Marcus would not wait for the sale. I anticipated he would try to remove the valuables and destroy the useless junk. Like the photo album, the centerpiece of my defense was the back of the photo logic. Marcus stormed the house and grabbed the antique photo album, along with several pieces of silverware, and tossed them all into a heavy-duty trash bag, declaring he was taking them to a dumpster before the sale. He expected me to dive into the trash bag, screaming and begging for my memories, confirming his belief that I was too sentimental and weak to protect myself. He believed that the destruction of my memories would destroy my will to fight. I simply watched him. I did not move. When the police, whom my attorney had notified about Marcus's restraining order violation, arrived at the house, having been sent by the court to check on my welfare, Marcus was still standing by the trash bag. I calmly walked up to the bag, reached inside, and retrieved the photo album. I opened it, pulled out a specific, seemingly ordinary picture of Arthur and me taken 20 years ago, and presented it to the attending officer. I then pointed to the handwritten note on the back. It was Arthur's legal holographic will, clearly stating, "In the event of my death, I leave full, sole ownership of the family home to my beloved wife, Eleanor. Marcus will receive nothing unless he can first repay the 30-year debt he owes his mother. This document revokes all previous verbal promises." The officer, after consulting the legal registry, immediately confirmed the validity of the handwritten will. Marcus's public estate sale was instantly canceled, and a permanent restraining order was issued, legally barring him from being within 300 feet of me or my property. He had tried to destroy my memories, only to have my memories destroy his inheritance. Confirming his debt and his disinheritance in one devastating stroke, Marcus, trembling with impotent fury, was forced to step outside his childhood home, completely isolated by the order of the court. I had endured his physical presence in my home for 3 long years, sacrificing my peace and privacy just to keep a constant, methodical watch over his every move. His final words before being escorted off the property by the police were a guttural scream, "I'll burn this place down before you get to keep it. You selfish old hag, I'll make you pay." while he was collapsing into a public display of narcissistic rage, being physically removed from the house he believed was his birthright. I was sitting peacefully in Arthur's armchair, holding the very photo that saved my home. His threat of destruction was the final piece of evidence I needed, the one that proved his criminal intent. He had lost the legal battle, the financial battle, and the emotional battle. His only recourse was violence and vandalism. He was a cornered animal, and I knew exactly where he would strike. His threat was not a victory, it was a promise, and I was already prepared to film him delivering on it. His freedom was about to end. Marcus was now completely untethered. He had failed in his attempts to seize my assets, destroy my legal standing, and annul my legacy. His final, guttural threat, "I'll burn this place down before you get to keep." It was not hyperbole. It was a promise born of pure, desperate narcissistic rage. I was ready. My final line of defense was the most obscure, the most easily dismissed, and therefore the most lethal. I had instructed the security company to install one camera, focused not on the front door, but on the old wooden fence that ran along the property line. The one Marcus constantly complained blocked his light. For years, Marcus had taunted me about the fence, calling it rotting junk and a sign of my obsolete taste. I had endured his constant demands to tear it down, sacrificing the peace of my backyard to maintain the property as Arthur had built it. That fence is a blight on the neighborhood. Mom, it's so old. It'll fall over if I just kick it. Why do you hold on to such useless garbage? His words had always dismissed the fence as mere aesthetic preference, never understanding its structural and legal significance. While he was outside threatening to kick the fence down to prove his point, I was inside meticulously filing away the original town zoning map from 1965. He saw the fence as a physical obstacle. I saw it as a load, bearing structure built exactly on the 12-foot municipal setback line. A detail only an archivist like me would notice. He would find that the useless garbage he despised was actually a legally protected municipal structure. His act of vandalism would not be mere property damage. It would be a felony against the city itself. His threat was the trigger for the final trap. The final, desperate act came just after midnight. A few hours after the restraining order was served, the motion sensor on the backyard camera immediately alerted my phone. Marcus had returned, disguised in dark clothing and carrying a rusty axe. I felt a spike of genuine, visceral fear. This was no longer a game of wits. It was a physical threat to my life and my property. I fought the urge to panic, using the cold resolve of my purpose to guide my hands. As he began to swing the axe, his rage was loud enough for the camera's ambient microphone to pick up. "You can't have it, old hag. If I can't live here, no one will. This is what you get for calling the police on your own son." His scream was an admission of guilt, motive, and intent. While Marcus was violently and illegally hacking away at the wooden structure, fueled by a belief that this was merely misdemeanor vandalism, I was sitting calmly in the dark, speaking softly to the 911 operator. I was providing a live, blow-by-blow narration of the crime and the threat to public safety he was creating. Turning his single act of rage into a mountain of criminal charges, he sought to leave me with a scar, a final monument to his hatred. I would leave him with a felony conviction and a prison sentence. His choice of weapon, the axe, was primitive and fitting for a man who believed brute force was superior to intellect. The police arrived swiftly, their headlights sweeping across the yard, just as Marcus delivered the final blow to the fence post. I emailed the live camera feed in the relevant section of the 1965 zoning map to the dispatch officer's email address moments before the squad cars pulled up. Marcus, seeing the police, dropped the axe and tried to flee over the now broken fence, believing he was only facing a minor charge for violating the restraining order. Marcus expected a quick arrest, a night in jail, and a fine. He believed his most serious crime was the identity theft. He certainly did not expect a small wooden fence to be his downfall. The arresting officer did not simply charge Marcus with violating the restraining order. The officer, having reviewed my immediate evidence, informed Marcus that he was being arrested for felony vandalism and, more importantly, creating a public safety hazard. That fence, Mr. Williams, is a structural component for the municipal water line and is subject to the 12-foot setback code, the officer stated, displaying the zoning map copy I had provided. Your destruction of it is a serious violation of city ordinances. We have you on video. Violating a protective order, threatening arson, and destroying public infrastructure. Marcus was slammed against the hood of the police car, his hands cuffed, his frantic pleas ignored. His final, desperate act of emotional destruction resulted in the most severe legal consequence, yet a charge tied directly to city code that invalidated all his subsequent legal options. He was taken away in the patrol car, facing years in jail, having lost his inheritance, his reputation, and his freedom, all because he mocked the useless junk and worthless paperwork of the archivist. I watched the police cars drive away, the broken fence the only tangible evidence of his final, pitiful defeat. For 3 years, I had held my tongue, pretending to be the victim, playing the part of the foolish old woman to observe and document his predictable cruelty. That act of endurance was now complete. His parting scream, "You will pay for this," was the final, pathetic echo of his entitlement, his refusal to accept responsibility for his own failures. While he was being processed and fingerprinted at the station, consumed by the realization that his life was ruined, I was sitting in Arthur's armchair, holding the handwritten will, finally allowing myself the silence and the peace I had sacrificed for so long. The house was mine, legally, financially, and emotionally, secured by my meticulous documentation of his every vile action. Marcus had sought to destroy my legacy and my peace. He only succeeded in destroying his own future. My justice was not a scream, it was a process. A quiet, methodical elimination of a parasite. I had not won the lottery. I had simply cleared my home of a destructive presence. The long, silent suffering of the peacemaker was over, replaced by the quiet, absolute finality of the archivist's justice. It is a common misconception that strength fades with age. It does not. It simply transforms into something quieter, something sharper, honed by decades of observation and archive. They call it senility, when an elderly person meticulously holds onto old papers and keepsakes. Marcus called it useless junk. I called it evidence. My quiet competence, my refusal to react to his insults, and my dedication to documenting the truth. The very qualities he mocked were the keys to his total, absolute destruction. He didn't just lose the house, he lost his freedom, his reputation, and his financial future. All because he underestimated the quiet resolve of the woman he thought was too old and too kind to fight back. Never underestimate the power of the archivist. The receipts always come due. If this story of quiet competence and ultimate victory over betrayal resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Share your own story in the comments. Have you ever used a seemingly useless hobby or old junk to protect your legacy?